Hello, everyone, and welcome to this webinar interview. I'm Francis Seeley from GlobalNet 21 and Enfield Voices. And in this interview, we've got Claudine Reid MBE, who runs a social enterprise called PGA Community Services, and she'll tell you about that in a minute. What we're going to look at is her approach to social enterprises. We've already done a webinar with her on social enterprises, but we're going to look at how she uses that and uses that as a catalyst for developing a solution to some of the many problems we have in our community around social care. Yesterday, we did a webinar on social prescriptions, which was very interesting. And today, we're going to look at a different model and see how that one copes with what is a growing and very big problem. So, Claudine, thank you for joining us today. And first of all, it might be nice for you to tell us a bit about, very briefly, about PGA Community Services and what it is and what you do.
Let me start by saying thank you so much, Francis, for having me, for inviting me onto your platform. So my name's Claudine Reid, and for the last 26 years, oh my gosh, I got the years wrong. For the last 26 years, I've been running a multi-award-winning social enterprise. So we provide essential services to the community. We started the service in 1992, actually as a home shopping delivery service to older people who are housebound and physically frail. And through the course of the life cycle of the business, we've evolved into different touch points for the community in the form of personal care, domestic care, for the same client group, older people who are housebound and physically frail. We've done a significant amount with young people who were either excluded or at risk of exclusion from mainstream education. We've worked with lone parents, the BME, that's Black minority and ethnic communities, ex-offenders, lone parents. So just working with the marginalised or underserved members of society to help upskill them and to help increase their capacity for more. I do that alongside my team of staff. We have around 120 staff who predominantly work in the field. So they are support workers, they are home care support staff, and by and large, their main function is to provide support to those people who are living in the community who require additional services.
Okay, I mean, that sounds one heck of a lot of activities you're involved in, which must keep you busy more than full time. And it's no wonder that you became a cabinet ambassador. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, so the Cabinet Office, this was probably around 2005. The Cabinet Office were looking at increasing because the government understands the value that social enterprise and social entrepreneurs bring to the economy. We're kind of focused on three key areas. So social good or environmental good, and of course we are focused on the bottom line, but it's that bottom line that we're able to reinvest back into the company so that we can do social good or environmental good. So around 2005, myself and 29 others, we were nominated to become social enterprise Cabinet Office social enterprise ambassadors. And our role, Francis, was literally to go across the country and evangelize, if you like, to spread the good news about social enterprise, its values, and what it does for the country, what it does for individuals, and what it does for communities. One of my key tasks was to make it attainable and to turn it into bite-sized pieces so that community groups that are working across the city, groups that are working across the country, groups that are working across a larger continent, if you like, so that they could add value and help solve some of the country's most challenging problems.
So why do you think you need to provide this service? I mean, do not local authorities provide this service anyway?
Yeah, do you know, I think that's a fantastic question. And it's one of the age-old challenges that we've had. Yes, local authorities do provide the service, but budgets are strapped. There are challenges, political challenges, economical challenges. And what we have found is that when social entrepreneurs or social enterprises are at the heart of serving some of the community's most underserved or most deprived or marginalised families, communities or areas, we found that the results were more impacting. I think that the experience of the social entrepreneurs comes from a different perspective. So we are able to provide jobs, we are able to have a different level of understanding, and we're able to respond at a much faster, in-depth rate than what we have found local authorities. Now, that's not to say local authorities don't have a role to play. Of course they do, but we have found that social enterprises are more agile in their response to some of the challenges that communities face.
So do you think that this combination of local authority and social enterprise is important? Local authorities sort of, make sure there's a level playing field, but you provide the innovation, the energy, the flexibility, and the new ideas.
Yes, I fully believe so. I think local authorities have a role to play, and I think the social entrepreneurs or social enterprises have a role to play. In terms of leveling the playing field, truth be told, I'm not sure if the playing field will ever be level, but I understand the role that the local authorities have to play in terms of making services accessible for all, making sure that there is no stone left unturned. Because I think when you look at communities, their first port of call is generally social services. So my role as a social entrepreneur is to keep myself visible to social enterprise, to local authorities rather, because they are the ones who connect. It's the local authority that connects the community with the social entrepreneurs in order for them to receive that level of service.
One of the areas clearly that you're concentrating on and that you've done a lot of work on is in the area of social care. And is it your view that social care, because of all the constraints upon it, could be only delivered in the future by community engagement and not through institutions? And that's where social enterprises come into their own. They're very good at social engagement.
Yes, I think one of the key things, and I like to kind of frame it like this, I think that local authorities are the head, if you like, of social care, and social enterprises are the heart of social care. And I think if you look at the functionality of a body, you need head and heart in order to get the best of both worlds. Head represents strategy, it represents methodology, whereas heart, in my opinion, represents purpose, drive, warmth. It represents the blood, if you like, the lifeblood of a community. And I think the combination of those two things working together, the head and the heart working together, that's how we're able to best bring better results to the community, because the two have worked together.
I mean, what do you say to local authorities who are a bit suspicious about outsourcing? And a lot of them are. We've seen that debate in Harrogate, we see it in Enfield. But outsourcing to social enterprise is a very different thing, isn't it, to outsourcing to sort of housing development. Social enterprises are small, innovative, and they're not just about profit.
Yeah, I think the interesting point here about outsourcing is that you said earlier on about leveling the playing field. I think there is a very strict criteria and a very in-depth regulation in my industry, for example. And I think those are some of the measures that local authorities can use as a barometer to make sure that the services that are being delivered are of an excellent quality and that they are standardized services, so that we get a similar level of quality across the playing field. So I would hope that once those systems and structures are in place, then it minimizes the reason for any ambiguity, it minimizes any quality issues, it minimizes organizations not being able to access, or individuals rather, not being able to access those levels of service, the types of service that can really meet their needs. Because then you've got the other sort of side of the coin, Francis, where the larger multinational organizations are able to respond to local authority demand, but their drive is more about profit margin as opposed to community good.
Okay, so let's look at this sort of social service that you provide. I mean, it's your view, isn't it, that at a time of financial constraints and with the huge problems of social care when we have an aging population and so on, that, you know, none of this can be done expensively in the expenses that it would require if we did it institutionally. And what we've got to do is to try and create a comprehensive policy where people can stay in their own homes and get the support for that.
Yes, you know, this has been an age-old problem, and I think this is one of the reasons why my organisation, PJ's Community Services, has been at the heart of some of the changes that have been taking place both locally and nationally. The government drive, of course, is to help older. It's easier to manage. You're surrounded, as an older person or somebody with physical or learning disabilities, you're surrounded 9 times out of 10 by family members and people who love care for you in the community. So of course that would be the first port of call. That's the easiest option. But we're faced with, you're right, the aging population and all of the challenges that go alongside that. And now with the world becoming such a smaller place and people traveling more, the original thought of having people in their own homes because there is a reliance on their family is becoming more strained, because our family groups are changing, the makeup of the family network is changing. So I think policy would support in terms of going forward, but at the same time I think it needs to be policy that has a very that's entwined with the input from social entrepreneurs like myself, so that we can have a look at how we respond to the needs of the changing demographic. Okay.
Now, to deliver what you do, you can't do it on your own. You have to really build up a community infrastructure, don't you, from the bottom up, and also almost a sort of ABCD, asset-based community development approach, where you look at the strengths in your community and then you use those strengths to deliver. Now, how do you build up that capacity? How do you create that so you can work with it?
I think that's a really great question. And one of the things that have worked for PJs over the last, few years is that we've always been focused on community needs, and all of our staff are very aware of the values, mission and purpose of the service. That helps us build a stronger base. It helps us build a very strong loyalty base. I think it also does something for the employees. So what I've observed, Francis, that people who are working in social enterprises, for as much as, yes, this is about finance at the end of the month, they're expecting their pay, but I also think that there's a heart connection in the work that they do. There's not a disconnect in the community. So those individuals who are working in the community, because they see the value that they are bringing on a very, on its purest level, they see the contribution that they are making, that enables and empowers people to stay in their homes. It enables and empowers individuals, young people, to return back to full-time education. It enables and empowers lone mothers to provide the best that they can for their children, or to go back into employment or education so that they can improve their aspirations. I think it's a combination of all of those things. To a loyalty base, it contributes to having a strong resource, because we can't ever negate the skill that the staff bring to the enterprise, to the organisation.
But what is the engine that you have to create this sort of community response? I mean, yesterday we looked at social prescriptions, so the GP in a way became one of the engines for referring people who are in need to various organisations that are built up then by a voluntary organisation or a charity. What's the engine you use to find the people in need and then refer them to the people that can help? And how do you build that network?
I think that's a fantastic question. My brain is thinking, because I think we have several engines. You mentioned the GP. We previously spoke about social enterprise. I think word of mouth. We have an industry regulator, the Care Quality Commission, CQC. I think a combination of all of those things, as well as word of mouth. Let's keep this on its purest, simplest form. Good service always gets recommendation. People who are in need, when they are aware, if you think that the last time that you ate at a good restaurant and a friend of yours or somebody asked, we want to go out for dinner, you'll always want to go back to the place where you've had good food, where you've had good service. And those are some of the engines that really work very well for PJs. It's what's helped us manage our sustainability. It's what's helped us manage growth. We've seen through, I think, 2 recessions, and we've been able to ride the wave of those peaks and troughs of business, because the engine will always be running. There will always be people in need. And I guess that's the thing about being able to respond to some of society's challenges. There will always be people in need. There will always be older people. There will always be young people. There will always be a problem. And I think part of that, the other element to the engine, I think, which is really quite key but difficult to quantify, is going to be the mindset or the visionary of the directors of the advisory board, to have a look at the community. What does the community look like, and what does the community need, and how can we respond to those needs? I think there's something to be said about the mental process as an engine that contributes to what that end output will be. And it kind of takes me back to the point that I was making about the balance between head and heart. Because head for an organisation, for a social enterprise, says we've got X amount of staff, this is what our budget control looks like. But heart says these are the service users who are relying on us to provide a level of social care that's really quite humane. The service is really quite humane. It's not as prescriptive as in other industries. When you're talking about health and social care, there really is a strong human element. We cannot negate the power of conversation, the power of a simple, hello, how are you doing today? Would you like a cup of tea? Those things carry so much value, and we can't negate those. And so I think it's a combination of the human machine factor, if you like, that strategy and head.
Okay, so you do this, but you don't do it alone, because you have to, surely, if you're going to get a comprehensive service, work with other people, frontline workers, social workers, people in the health authority, district nurses and so on. Do you work with these together, and have you got joined up working? Are you part of a joined up working infrastructure at a grassroots local community level?
Yes, those are one of the things that we've actually thrived on in terms of joined up thinking and joined up working, and the ability to share best practice. So all of the above that you have mentioned, we work with family assessment units, social workers, other organisations, other support agencies. So there are some drug dependency units, family assessment units, the education system, crisis centres. We work with all of those to provide support staff, but also to learn what's happening or what are some of the challenges in those respective areas. Because when we are when we're aware of what's happening in those respective spaces, then we can train our staff accordingly so that we can respond to the need and the demand. And I think that's also another winning point for PJs, if you like, is our ability to be flexible and be able to respond to the need of the community. Because as the demographic and as the age profile of the community changes, from a business perspective, our skill base needs to change. We need to be able to understand millennials. We need to be able to understand the baby boomers. We need to be able to understand generation X, Y, and now Z. That all feeds into our business plan. It feeds into our knowledge of the community. It feeds into the political and social landscape, so that we are able to stay ahead of the curve, if you like, and ensure that our skill base doesn't sort of fizzle out with the demographic in terms of their age in who we're serving.
When you work with people at a frontline level from other agencies, do you find there's a freedom to sort of manage at that local level, or do you think because they come from bureaucracies, very often middle management gets in the way and prevents you having the sort of innovation you want? Or have you managed to get around that problem?
Yeah, I think we've managed to get around that problem. I think by and large, Francis, the results speak for themselves. And I think most frontline organisations are always looking for bigger, better, faster, cheaper ways of doing things. And I think across the board, you know, one of the sayings that I love says the goal is more important than the role. So from a social enterprise perspective, if we're working with other frontline agencies, other frontline organisations, we're always very key or very clear about what the goal is. And the goal will be all the time independence. It will always be good quality of life. It will always be general health and well-being. And I think as long as we don't lose sight of the goal, then whoever those agents are, those agents of change, then we should be able to work together in order to ensure that we meet the goal, which is providing the best level of service for the individuals that we've been commissioned to serve.
Okay, so one of the reasons why I thought I'd like to do this interview with you after we did the webinar with you the other time was you came up with this rather interesting idea that, you know, to solve the social care problem, a combination of this frontline network community engagement that you do with the digital revolution, using a digitized way of making contact as well, is what could be incredibly powerful. Do you want to explain that? Do you want to tell us how the digital sphere of our lives can help solve some of the problems that we're talking about here and that relate to working at a grassroots level?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the whole sort of digital revolution, digital platform has revolutionized the way how we think, the way how we eat, the way how we work, the way how we connect with each other. I mean, social media by itself has transformed the way how we communicate. And I think when we explore some of the innovations from artificial intelligence in particular, those are some of the things that we're exploring at the moment. I think that it has a real huge role to play. So for example, let me just throw this in and hopefully it will make a little bit more sense. So I also coach entrepreneurs to start, run and develop their businesses. And I have a client and she's literally in the process. She makes life-size baby dolls. And now those dolls are used in nursing homes for people with dementia. It helps, you know, keep them familiar with their surroundings. It helps them stay in touch with the human side because these are babies. They are life-size and weight babies in terms of their facial expressions and so on. And when we explore how we digitalize that product and then what it means in helping to manage degenerative brain challenges or degenerative challenges for some of our service users, we can then look at what does the digital platform mean and how can we get the best out of digitalizing those services. So those are some of the things that we're looking at and exploring at the moment. The feedback is absolutely phenomenal because then this isn't only about older people. We can use it for many different age groups. And I think on a grassroots level, we're always looking at efficiencies. We're always looking at innovations on how we can deliver a more robust, faster, better, swifter service because our population is growing rapidly and we've got to be able to use technology and artificial intelligence to help us manage that growth.
So, I mean, for example, would you be using things like Skype in order to train or encourage the people who are not up to scratch with their digital skills to talk to each other, older people? Would you be using Skype to do consultation? I mean, GPs now use Skype instead of going to the surgery. They actually have a Skype consultation, and you could do that with social work. You could do that with so many other people. You know, Amazon now is using some of their contractions and giving it to older people that older people can talk to them and get answers. So is it that whole area of digital innovation, big data, that you think has a real future in tackling some of these problems?
Absolutely. So we haven't focused too much on the Skype methodology, but it is an option. We have many different platforms that we can potentially use. But I think the balance here is about the digitalization of the service, but without losing the human touch. And we've got to try and strike that balance between the two. So for our staff, for example, and some of the other frontline contributors to the service, but where the actual service users are concerned, we haven't introduced the digitalization to them directly, because we still want it to be human. We still recognize that when all is said and done, the world is evolving. We still need human interaction. We still need a hand to hold. We still need somebody to let you know that it's going to be okay. You still need somebody to help you with certain aspects of life. And I think those are the things that we don't want to give to machines. Those are the things that we don't want to lose to a robot. We need to be able to still manage the emotion of life.
There's the other side of the digital world as well, isn't there? There's big data. I mean, one of the problems you have and everyone has is identifying where the real need is and how strongly that need is felt. And big data can actually do that. I mean, major companies are doing that now. And if we could make that accessible to you and others, where you can find through the information of Google and Facebook and Twitter and so on, exactly where the need is, geographically where it is, you can identify it. It would make your job, it will make local authorities' job so much easier, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I think those are some of the innovations that we already have. And I think part of this, again, back to my point, is about finding that balance. So we are always looking for something that's bigger, better, faster, and cheaper, but without losing the human touch.
Okay, so I mean, we're getting very close to the end now, so maybe we could sum up. So is your model this then? You're trying to develop a comprehensive community engagement system at a grassroots level to actually identify people who are in need, and you try to, with a whole set of people, workers, navigators, direct them to where they can get best help. You also engage with the digital world to try and enhance what you do and do it in a cost-effective and comprehensive way. But you also, at the same time, want to ensure that you don't lose the human touch, that there always a hand to hold, as you put it, a face to talk to.
Absolutely. I think that's a great summation, Francis. And I think at the same time of being in agreement with your summation, there is still a responsibility on myself as a social entrepreneur. The demographic change, the cultural landscape changes, the age profile changes, the race and creed profile changes. As a social entrepreneur, I still need to be able to keep abreast of all of those, and there's an element of community intelligence, if you like, and psychological capital that we have to invest in these.
Okay, and this is a problem that's not going to go away, is it? It's something that's going to face us from years to years to come. And we need projects like yours and others to actually engage in this and find effective solutions to something that is going to face us all, facing me very, very soon.
Yeah.
Okay, yes was your short answer. That's great. Okay, well, thank you very much. I mean, we're sort of the end of our time now, and I mean that is really good. I'm so pleased you came on, because the webinar you did before on the role of social enterprises was great, and I thought exploring your ideas about how you are helping to deliver social care and you're using the digital approach to it as well was innovative, and very important to learn from, and I think many people will. So thank you for joining us. And
thank you very much, Francis.
Okay, well, thank you. So we'll end the interview now, and hopefully we'll talk to you again sometime in the future.